With it, traffic volumes expected to increase sharply on some of the country's major roads. Thousands of motorists will be making their way back to cities and towns across the country as they go back to work and prepare for the new year. The authorities are urging drivers to be patient, plan your trips carefully, obey the rules of the road so that you can avoid accidents and delays. Let's get the latest for you with the Road Traffic Management Corporation's Zwane. Simon, good morning. Compliments of the festive season to you. I don't know till when we're allowed to say all of this, Happy New Year, etc., etc. But
January 8th, until the general statement has been made.
All right. So on a serious note, though, there's going to be a lot of people movement. So maybe just start by talking to us. As you and your team put your heads together and take a look at the country's map, where are some of the busiest roads countrywide at this point?
Yeah, no, we've experienced peak in travel on the N1, the N3, the N4, even the R61 between the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape. On the N1, by late yesterday, we were recording more than 2,400 vehicles an hour coming into Gauteng, while 1,700 were coming to Gauteng from KZN side, and there would have been another 1,100 coming in from the Mpumalanga side. So those roads have been extremely busy yesterday. And however, we were concerned about the rainfall and the conduct of the drivers when driving in rainy conditions, because some were still speeding, not adjusting their traveling speed to prevailing condition. And that we know leads to crashes and fatalities. So our people still don't understand that roads are a shared space and that they must be used responsibly. And when conditions change, you also change your driving style.
As you say, you've got to have a sense of community on the roads, and sometimes you see really selfish behavior, aggressive behavior of people, you know, wanting to get ahead. Some of the routes you mentioned are not entirely unexpected. We know that we have a lot of people who come from KZN, between KZN and Johannesburg, traveling back and forth. You mentioned Mpumalanga as well. Besides the trends and the driver behavior, one of the other things is the time of day that people are conducting their travel in. And one of the pieces of advice, important pieces of advice the RTMC is giving to the members of the public is to avoid traveling at night. Why, Simon?
Yes, that is because at night we see an increase in the number of fatalities. In fact, 2 days ago, around midnight, we saw a major crash in Forestburg, just after midnight, the time that we had long advised people to avoid, where 6 people eventually died when a minibus collided with a private motor vehicle. So nighttime driving in early hours of the morning before sunrise are times that have been shown to be high risk times to travel in. But we were quite encouraged to see the highest peak in travel happening at around between 3 and 5 yesterday. That was when the highest number of vehicles were now entering Gauteng, meaning that those people would have reached their destination in good time when there was still sufficient light. Yeah. But another issue of concern was those who choose to travel outside of the national roads into the secondary roads. Those are people who were stubbornly refusing to be compliant with the rules of the roads, but they were choosing roads that are not in particularly good conditions. We know with the heavy rainfalls that we have had, some of the secondary routes have been negatively impacted. They've got a number of potholes and stuff. So it's high risk behavior that we've also seen. That people choose choose to use back roads and roads that are not in a good condition, simply because they want to avoid detection by traffic officers.
And as you've said, these compound factors come together and they do raise the risk of fatalities when you have poor infrastructure, poor environmental conditions, combined with bad behavior and imperfect timing. That can really raise the risk on you arriving at your destination safely. So if I'm planning my trip, what's the best way to connect with up-to-date information that the RTMC might have? Like, for example, don't leave now because at this particular intersection or this particular milestone, there's going to be, high traffic volumes, for example, at this toll. How do we plan? How do motorists who, even from now till the time that schools reopen, begin to plan their return journeys?
Yeah, they can check our social media feeds. But the concession companies, the companies that are managing the roads and toll gates, will also issue updates almost hourly to update motorists about the conditions on the roads. So if they do that at the basic level, they will be able to plan the trips accordingly.
In your view, what's the best time to leave home? If you're saying people are arriving at around 5 o'clock in Gauteng, let's say, having started their journey in KwaZulu-Natal. So that's what, around 11 a.m. They're leaving to go, and then of course you have full visibility there. If there isn't fog in certain spaces or if there isn't rain, what are in your opinion some of the better times to leave home if you're making a 6 or 7 hour trip from somewhere?
Yeah, you must also factor in that there might be congestion and then they need to take an hour to rest. So we'll be leaving home, say around 6 o'clock when the sun comes out. And then on the road, you will have a break for an hour, and then you'll be able to get into Gauteng in sufficient time when there's still sunlight.
All right, now I really think it's important, as you say, you have your social media feeds, live updates, because that will tell you where accidents have happened. That will tell you where inclement weather is. That will also alert you to the congestion you've just mentioned. You've also, during the course of your enforcement operations, impounded a significant number of public transport vehicles. Talk to us about those and people who are still operating, people's movements, and people are traveling with their families, traveling with all of their luggage, and yet they're not meeting the safety standards, and some of the drivers don't even have those operator permits.
Yeah, we've seen that, and in some instances, it's been driven by greed, because some people were taking loads into the routes for which they do not have permits, simply because there were many people at a taxi rank waiting for vehicles to take them home. So they would then take chances and want to travel onto the routes that they are not familiar with and routes for which they do not have permits. And those vehicles have been impounded. I think we're grateful for the good work that Mpumalanga in particular has done, because they've impounded the highest number of those kinds of vehicles. Some of the vehicles, it's not that only that they don't have permits. You'd find that the driver doesn't have even a public driving permit.
Sure.
And the vehicles are not in a roadworthy state. But of also particular concern were these long distance buses that were heavily overloaded. Some of them were stopped in Limpopo, some carrying 30 passengers above the regulated amounts, even above of 30. So that has been a big concern, that flagrant disregard for rules of the road, but also for safety of the passengers and other road users.
Well, look, it's great that the enforcement is happening, as you say, in Mpumalanga, recording a higher number of the impounding of vehicles. But what happens in terms of actual punishment? Are there fines issued? Are people, are their driver's licenses taken away? And what do you do when it's cross-border? How do you enforce the law there and make sure that people do stick to the rules of the road, both in terms of the quality and the state and maintenance of their vehicles, but also their own personal documentation?
Yeah, in an instance where a bus has been found or a public transport vehicle found to be in violation of road regulations, that vehicle gets impounded. So it's stopped, cannot proceed with the journey. The drivers have been arrested, especially those who were driving these buses cross-border. They were arrested. They get kept in custody until an alternative bus has been arranged to come and take those passengers. But they will also have to appear in court before they can proceed. Yes, there are fines, but on top of the fines, it will also be the cost of storage for that vehicle. So the impoundment fees also come into effect. So it becomes very expensive because maybe a bus can be required to pay impoundment fees of more than 5,000. That is before the fine and before the court appearances.
Okay. Well, it's good to hear that the enforcement is there. And I guess the advice then to people traveling is maybe to ask, do you have a public driver's permit and is this vehicle roadworthy? Although, you know, many people don't. You're just kind of at the mercy of what is available. Thanks for talking to us and for the update, Simon. We'll see you out on the streets for more updates. Simon Zwane speaks for the Road Traffic Management.